perspective towards cannabis completely. And so I got into the industry fully, getting into the consumer side of the business. I started a company in college called Early Bird, which was a company that sold silicone containers, torches, and things like that for the consumers in this space. And then that got me very interested in the commercial side of the industry, the people making the products, growing the products, and things like that. While in St. Louis, I did my first extraction. Alcohol extraction was the first thing I did. It was the safest. Then I also dabbled in open plastic and whatnot because closed loop wasn't around back then. So that was kind of my first foray into the industry. In 2014, after college, I moved to LA. I knew that was where the epicenter of the cannabis industry was. So I got out there, used my connections from the Early Bird company, and got to meet a lot of people in the industry that were making oil already and learned the ins and outs of the process and the supply chain, meeting growers, getting trend, all that stuff. So I know exactly what extractors and processors go through from first-hand experience. And my first system, buying my equipment, and that experience, the negative experience of that, motivated me to start Extractor Depot because it was a nightmare my first time. Back in 2014, there was no one selling all the supplies and equipment, and those people didn't really know what they were selling because everyone was learning on the fly. So that motivated me to start Extractor Depot, to be a resource for people getting into the space. So in 2016, that's when we first launched Extractor Depot to the public. We started out selling parts and things like that. They kind of grew into providing a turnkey solution for products. And I would consider myself a connoisseur of cannabis. I partake in the industry, firsthand, and I really, take pride in creating high quality products, or, knowing the difference between low quality and high quality, and the nuances and the terpene profiles, and really understanding the actual product itself. I think it's really important that you work with someone or consultant in the space that actually partake in the industry, because if you don't partake in the space, then how do you know exactly what you're making or the quality of what you're making? I think quality at the end of the day is what really differentiates the brands. So a little bit about Extractor Depot. We have 2 locations in Southern California and 1 in Oklahoma City. We provide equipment solutions for all stages of the manufacturing process, from BHO extraction, alcohol extraction, to distillation, pesticide remediation, and all the supplies that you need to do all those processes. So everything from your gas, dry ice, solvents, and anything that you really need in the whole process. I would say our expertise as a company, though, is in BHO in the distillation side. I personally have a ton of experience in BHO myself, and my team members as well, the ones that are doing a lot of the training and implementation, have a lot of experience in those 2 areas. And we also have our own Type 7 manufacturing in Southern California, so we've gone through the hoops of jumping through regulatory codes and getting compliant and going through the whole process of that. And so I know firsthand what it's like to go through that process and what's needed in the template to be successful in that space. We've also worked with MSOs like Stizzy and Forefront, a lot of small mom-and-pop companies across the country. Being in LA, it's a small industry, and word of mouth goes around quickly. And a lot of these brands are based in LA, so we've done a lot of work extensively with a lot of different brands in this space. Extractor Depot has evolved into doing more turnkey lab build-outs, because we first started out providing parts and supplies and little things that extractors would need, but eventually it evolved into more of a turnkey consulting kind of service business. Now we're vertically integrating our supply chains a lot more to be able to get our clients the best pricing on consumables and supplies, because that's really what also helps you be able to keep your margins as high as possible. So this is an overview of the basic manufacturing process. It's a little bit different depending on which step you go down. This is kind of more in line with what you would see in alcohol extraction process. So you got your biomass starting here, and then in your extraction process, you use your alcohol or your ethanol or iso, and then you get your crude oil. You would clarify that crude oil with winterization or medias and things like that. Remove all your particulates, go to your solvent recovery, and then you would end up with your crude oil right here that's purified, your winterized oil, and then go into your deep distillation stage, and then you would end up with your distillate, and then do any kind of post-processing work to get to your isolate. Now, I went through that pretty quickly, and there's a lot of different steps and little nuances in between those steps that are important to producing the highest purity oil and the best quality. So those are things that we won't have time to go over today. But the things that I wanted to go over with you guys today is kind of the things to look for when you're looking for equipment and trying to optimize your current system and things like that. So one of the first things that we see in the equipment that we see in the field when we visit labs, a lot of times when we visit facilities, is the ancillary equipment that gets paired with, say, a piece of stainless steel equipment. Because most of the time, the stainless steel part of the system is pretty comparative between systems. But the difference comes with the ancillary equipment that a lot of the OEMs provide with the equipment. So a lot of times, you'll see that the chillers and the heaters that are paired with the equipment don't have the right cooling capacity or heating capacity to give you the actual performance that you need from a production standpoint. A lot of times you'll see a small little heater and chiller powering a system that's supposed to do 100 to 200 pounds of processing per day, and it's impossible to reach those numbers because the chillers and heaters being inadequate to power the recovery process in the machine. And so those are one of the things that I would recommend when you're going out there looking for an extraction system. Make sure to ask, okay, what's the heater and chiller that's going to be included with the system? What's the recovery rate that you're saying that the system can do? And really look into those numbers, because a lot of OEMs will promise you this and that, but they have to be able to back it up with the ancillary pairings that you put with it. And so a lot of that is engineering based and whatnot, and you'll need to know the kilowatts of cooling and heating that you need to reach certain recovery rates. But those are things that we go over in our process when we go through things with our clients, is get a good idea of exactly what kind of biomass production you guys need per day, and matching the ancillary equipment to that actual desired output. A lot of times what happens is in the early stages of this industry, there was a lot of laboratory grade equipment being sold into the space. People were looking at one line on the spec sheet that said -80, and they would look at that only, and then they wouldn't look at anything else on the spec sheet, because that's the only thing their mind was looking at. But that chiller that's at -80 might only provide you 0.3 kilowatts of cooling power, which is literally almost useless in our space with our processes. So it's really important to kind of pay attention to other numbers in the spec sheet, like your flow rate, the kilowatts of cooling capacity, and those kind of numbers, because that's what really determines the actual performance of your machine. And those are things that are often overlooked when you're looking for equipment. So when you're looking at equipment, make sure you're not looking at laboratory grade equipment, but commercial industrial grade equipment in the space, because you want something that's going to last you 5-10 years and not have a ton of maintenance that goes with it. In addition, a lot of the equipment out there in the process piping, like the connections between the chillers and heaters, they're oftentimes not designed properly. So they're either too narrow, like it's using a 1/2-inch pipe instead of a 1-inch pipe, and that has a drastic effect on your ability to actually use the full performance of your chillers and heaters in your process. So it's really important. It's not just buying the right chillers and heaters. That's one aspect of it, but making sure that the implementation of that equipment is done properly as well. So making sure the plumbing is done correctly, making sure that all that is connected properly, so that you're getting the full performance of your equipment. So, like I said before, it's really important that you pay attention to the equipment pairings that are offered by the OEM that you're looking to go with in terms of your equipment selection, and also looking at the design of the equipment. If that piece of equipment, let's say like on a collection vessel on a VHO system, has 1/2-inch ports for your heater, that's going to be limited to a certain amount of recovery rate, because you can only flow certain flow rate of water through that collection vessel because of the piping size. So those little things, those nuances are things that you want to pay attention to when you're looking at a piece of equipment and analyzing exactly what it can actually do, or what it says it can do, and figuring out what can it actually do in reality. And also make sure that you're always requesting specific information from the OEM, how they calculated the recovery rates, and make them back it up with the engineering data to show, okay, because of this many kilowatts of heat and cooling, this is how you can get this recovery rate on your system and get that throughput that you need from a biomass processing standpoint. And then also looking at potential bottlenecks on equipment designs, like I said earlier, with each other and heater ports, things like that. I know I dumped a lot of information here. Do you guys have any questions before we move on to the next one? So another issue that we see oftentimes when we visit labs is a a inefficient and inconsistent processing standard operating procedure and equipment design. So it kind of goes hand in hand. The SOP has to match with the design, and the design also has to optimize what the process or design or SOP is going to be. A lot of times what we see is there's too much downtime between batches. So on a closed loop system, you'll have, say, multiple material columns, and there will be a lot of downtime in between replacing that batch with a new batch. And getting that to be optimal and having the smallest amount of downtime in between batches is also how you increase throughput during your day. And so those little things make a huge impact on your overall processing volumes that you can do. Another thing is a lot of people operate these systems without an idea on the data that they need to collect to really optimize the process. So say you're using, in alcohol extraction, you use a 1-to-1 ratio, 1 gallon to a pound of biomass. Or in hydrocarbon extraction, you use about 3 pounds of solvent or butane to a pound of biomass. But if you can't tell how much solvent you're putting into that process because you don't have a scale, you don't have a flow meter, then you're just kind of wildly guessing. And so a lot of things that we see in the lab is people are just eyeballing things without exactly knowing what's going on in the process or what they're introducing into the system. So having a scale to be able to determine, okay, I put in 20 pounds of solvent into this process and I didn't yield that much. Maybe I need to do more of that next one. But if you don't have that data set, then you're just kind of going by eye. And that's one of the things that we recommend is make your process repeatable and dumb it down as much as possible so that the next person that that does it doesn't have to come back to you and ask questions. You should try to make it as simple and as repeatable and consistent as possible. And those are the things that I think, the things that a lot of labs struggle with is getting that data to be able to know if they're even efficient in the first place. And I think, eliminating redundancies and removing, as many unnecessary steps as possible is a key aspect of that, how you solve this issue. And, by being prepared and planning ahead of time and, being able to reduce that turnover time between batches is going to be able to get you from processing 50 pounds a day to 100 pounds a day by small steps or small changes in your operating procedure. And so those are things that we take pride in because we actually have the hands-on experience to give you guys the consulting on how to optimize your current process or how to design your new process to be optimal for your goals. Another thing is having preparation done. A lot of companies have started to move into using material socks or things like that in the AHL process. Getting those prepped the day before, making sure that the team that's coming the next day, the next shift, has things prepped. So all they have to do is come in and start production. And having that kind of mindset for your business and for your manufacturing facility is what you really need to do to be successful in this space. Because the price of these products, New Mexico is going to have a 2-year window probably for there to be high margins, but at a certain point, this market's going to get squeezed like every other market. For you to survive in this market, you have to be vertically integrated, and you have to have a strong brand, and you have to be able to cut your margins, or increase your margins by cutting your expenses and increasing your efficiency as much as possible. So that's another key aspect of being able to do that. And then also having your chillers and your answering equipment right ahead of time, or having the right equipment where they can be turned on before you arrive at the facility. Some of these chillers have sophisticated control systems where you can have it programmed to turn on 2 hours before you arrive at the facility. So when you get there, all you have to do is load up the socks and get running. So there's a lot of little things like that that can improve your efficiency in a production environment. Then, like I said before, using the scales and the measuring tools to really have a awareness of what's going on in your system is really key. Because if you're operating for instance, I don't know if you guys have operated distillation systems, but if you're operating a distillation system and you don't have a vacuum gauge on it, then you're operating blind. Same thing with hydrocarbon system. If you're not using a scale, you're basically just operating blind and only using your eye to determine what's going on in the process. So those are things that I definitely would look at when you're looking at setting up your facility. All right. So the last one is a more of a personnel and I think just a overall business thing that we see a lot of times. So a lot of times when we go into the lab, there's not much leadership in the lab. There's not someone that has lab experience, but also the business experience to build the team or build the processes in the business to make it a efficient, well-oiled business. So I think it's a lot of it comes back to planning and making sure the planning and the details are all there in the planning to make sure that all team members are on the same page with what's going on and how to do a certain process. A lot of these labs get built out and there's not a knowledgeable expert in the lab, and so everyone's kind of learning on the fly. We're doing R&D and learning as it goes. So as you guys develop that infrastructure in that team, it's important to document things as you go along and make sure that you document every SOP, every step of the process in your business, and see how it all kind of connects, because without that, everyone's going to be lost in exactly how the business is flowing from one section to the other of the business. Because everything from intaking your biomass to how you prepare it, how you get the systems ready, all those little things need to be on an SOP document and visually mapped out, so the team members on your manufacturing team can actually know, okay, what role do I play in this business, in this step of the process, and having all those details there makes it so when you're the owner of the business operating it, you know exactly where the inefficiencies are when things pop up, and everything can be repeatable, scalable, and a lot more efficient in that sense. It also removes the constant firefighting that goes on in the labs, because with that planning, there are contingencies that you plan for and things like that. So when you have the proper planning in place, you can actually have the team respond in an appropriate way to those issues that come up. And then, obviously, you have lost productivity. I've had so many customers call us last minute, right before they were supposed to run the next day. Calling, hey, if you guys open on Sundays, I need to go get ice, or I need to do this, I need to do that, because of improper planning and not really planning ahead of time. And I think that's one of the things that this industry suffers from the most is lack of planning, and just planning ahead and having the details organized, because I think it's just the immaturity of the space and just the new entrants to the market might not have all the business experience to really understand how important planning is to success in the manufacturing environment. So like I said before, I think an easy solution to this, and it's not, I would say it's easy, but it's hard to implement and have it be a culture of the business. So it's one of those things where I would recommend, that the manufacturing process from start to finish is so detailed and planned out that anyone can read it, follow, and duplicate the results that you're trying to accomplish. You guys, as owners, operators, or leads of that company, will establish what works best, and then have it be written down, documented, and then have it be replicated by your team members. So I think that's a key aspect of figuring that out early on and what works best for your business. And then the next thing is making sure, having your team be prepared and having the next day's work prepared, or even the next couple of days prepared, so that your team is constantly churning through biomass and production instead of having delays and having small things prepped that eat into your production. So these are the things that top three things that we see in the lab when we visit a lot of facilities in Los Angeles, and a lot of these things go unlooked because a lot of these lab operators they maybe jump from one lab to another, and you don't get the full experience of working with a lot of different labs. And so you only know what you experience. And so from our experience working with hundreds of labs in LA, this is kind of like the top tier things that we've seen, and the things that I would look for and look at when you guys are out in the space looking for equipment or designing your facility. These are key things that I would definitely pay attention to in the future. So we do offer the consulting in terms of lab optimization services. So it's offered complimentary, and we do a lot of virtual and on-site depending on the location. And so if you guys are interested in that service, we'll be available. We have a booth at 301 in the front. And if you guys have any interest in our services or just learning more, we have a wealth of knowledge that we'd love to share with you guys. And whatever you guys have questions about, I'm an open book. So I'd love to chat with you guys and see how I can bring value to your business and be a partner for you guys and help you guys be successful in here. I think one of the things that I like to do is help people not make the same mistakes that I made when I was an extractor and setting up my facility. So making sure that you guys go through this without the same, having to go through the expensive learning lessons is the most important thing that I can provide in value to you guys. And so that's pretty much my goal here in this presentation. So thank you guys for your time. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, we can move to that next. So anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
He's got a mic for you.
So you were talking about data points in the system. What kind of examples can you give me of maybe some numbers or specific data points to look out for in terms of maybe like a week or like times on extracting or
Right.
kind of examples?
Right. So solvent use would be one, like how much solvent you're using. Another one would be your recovery times, like how quickly you're recovering, so you can gauge how efficient your system's operating. The amount of biomass that you process during a given like duration of time in a shift, whatnot. I would also measure. This is a common thing that we see customers measure is how much biomass goes into that column and how much yield they get, so they can also measure yield and efficiency that way. And those would be the main data points that I think are key to manufacturing. And then at the end, I would always say like quality control is a big aspect, and knowing exactly what kind of quality is coming out of your product. Another thing is a lot of people are using media these days, like CRC, and a lot of times people complain about, oh, that CRC media did this or that. And so knowing what media that you put in that run, and then gauging, okay, what kind of quality came out of it, grading that quality and knowing exactly how it affected your quality difference between using, say, carbon, T41 or T5, or those different medias are a key aspect of how you can kind of tweak your process and really optimize your overall, extraction result. So.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
So some of my questions may require like catching afterwards, but the ones that I think are probably relevant more in general are for us. A lot of folks are a little more like the extraction process.
Sorry, can you move on?
So a lot of people here seem like they're going to be in the extraction process. I'm a little bit more downline in that whole system.
Yeah.
So one of the first things I wanted to ask was, at the current costs but as I'm getting started, I don't have a lot of opportunity to automate. But as soon as net profits and reinvestment are able to happen, would you recommend going with a pre-made solution for, say, taking a batch and getting it all the way through the automated labeling process and having it hand off? Or if I happen to have a couple of really, really good engineers, what should they be looking out for when building?
Okay, so the first part of your question where you talked about kind of where you're entering into the market from a product formulation and branding standpoint, right? That's kind of where you're starting.
Yes.
I think that's the smart move. It's the least capital intensive, and also it allows you to build a brand and build a cash flow for your business before you even invest into all the equipment and expensive stuff. So I think that's a good move.
Yeah, doing more bespoke work at first and then learning to automate it.
Right. Yeah, because in LA and a lot of the customers that we deal with, that's one of the biggest headaches or pain points they have is sales and distribution and marketing and branding. So if you can do that strong first and focus on that and build that out first, I would definitely say that's the way to start.
Thankfully, I'm there.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that's what I would recommend. Starting there, putting your focus there, and then building backwards, and then building out the manufacturing to increase your margins. Because essentially, you're building out that manufacturing facility to capture more margin at the end of the day. You're cutting out the manufacturer that's eating 25-30% of your margin. And then you're doing the same thing when you start up your own grow. And so when you have that distribution and sales already figured out on the back end at the end of the cycle, then you can work your way backwards. So a lot of the retail shops are the most successful because they have that cash flow, they have the customer base, and they can slowly work backwards and build out all the other points of it. And that's really what I recommend because a lot of the
have to do like a profit split.
Exactly.
You're basically taking it from farm to retail.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And then your second part where you were asking about, should I have a custom system designed and engineered, or should I go with like more of a turnkey off-the-shelf solution? Was that your question?
Yeah. Basically, I'm in a position where I'm lucky enough to have a number of really good hardware and software engineers, and on my side, who are willing to basically just help.
Yeah.
And I have personal doubly programming experience
Right.
to basically get it all up and running.
Yeah.
Even if I just get blueprints and build it out myself.
Right.
But what are some specific things, given the kind of thing I'm going to start doing?
Yeah.
that, you know, was mostly my badge. That actually, okay. Mostly my badging is, you know, created and bespoke. But after that, I really, really want to, you know, automate that process.
Yeah.
Everything from basically putting bottles and pipettes into a hopper, and getting that whole process of, you know, sterilization to fill to seal to label to it's on the other side.
Right. So we see this a lot with customers where they are manufacturing a product and then they start designing whole equipment that's related to manufacturing that product, and that takes over their entire life. And so that's one of the pitfalls of this industry. There's so many shiny new things to jump into, and you also have to kind of slap yourself and be like, hey, is this what I want to focus on? Because that's a whole rabbit hole of things that you got to now deal with, and you're trying to go into that space, and it's a lot of money and R&D and time. So you kind of have to weigh, you know, is it worth my time to, like, am I going to save enough money if that packaging machine, that automated machine is $100,000, but I can build it for $15,000 or $20,000 with my expertise, and I can do it in a certain time frame, then maybe it makes sense. But if during that time you could have bought